करियर ऐसा है कि मतलब एटलीस्ट फॉर द नेक्स्ट कपल ऑफ इयर्स है एनीवेज मतलब आई एम हैप्पी विद मैरिको उसके बाद में देखेंगे
a doctor himself. He's a singer, he's a speaker, he's a writer, he's a member of NESCOM, and also a student himself. Likes to be called as a student. He keeps learning. He is none other than Mr. Dr. Deepak Deshpande, who is also the chief head CHRO at NTT Net Magic. He worked earlier with companies like Lionbridge, Systrine. He's worked with Dryden Technologies and Blue Star Infotech. His doctorate was in New Age corporate leadership role. That's about Dr. Deepak. Welcome, Dr. Deepak.
Thank you, sir.
I have my other panelists, a couple of very, very large mergers and acquisitions, who's a veteran in the talent acquisition space. He's working with one of the big fours. His earlier assignment was with he's a pass out of Symbiosis Institute of Management. His earlier assignment with E-Force, CFI, GE, then he was with Cognizant, and he's seen the merger of CSC, and now he had one of the largest big fours, PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, is Dr. Narayanan Ramchandran. He is based out of South India, who brings in a very different perspective. He started his career with SR. He then moved on to working with Kimberly Clark, a very large multinational in the FMCG space, and now a common name, one of the largest FMCG companies in the country, Vivek Rathi. He hails from, or rather, his college is MDI Gurgaon. He is HR for Middle East, Africa, and for very strategic corporate function at ICO. Welcome, Vivek. Our topic for the day is technologies evolving. With the COVID pandemic, we have heard a lot of names, and we talked about. What is that? And at the same time, there's some of which is needed, and managing that platform also is we can data how would it bring down the cost further. Am I audible?
Ranu, maybe you can switch off the video. I think there's some network problem.
Dr. Deepak?
Yeah.
Deepak?
Is it okay now?
Dr. Deepak?
Yes, sir. Ranu sir, your
Hello?
your voice is a bit not audible.
Maybe I should stop my video.
Yeah, that should probably
Can you hear me now?
help him.
Ranu? Ranu,
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry for that technical glitch. Always.
No problem. No problem.
So I missed the most part of the first question. Can you please repeat, because there was a lot of break.
Ranu sir, can you repeat the
Well,
question?
Yeah.
yeah, Deepak, I just wanted to understand. I am sorry, I think my voice was cracking.
Yeah.
Deepak, my first question to you, wanted to check. There are we talking
I think there is some.
wanted to understand how are you guys at various companies trying to collect together the databases and the gig workforce for your future requirement.
Okay. Traditionally, we've been depending a lot on the job portals for a long time. Now they are more advanced from where they started 2 decades ago. When you talk of the job portals, today's job portals are much more big in size, fast. They have their own analytics. They have some front end is improved drastically. The company can advertise and brand themselves. Correct. And the second was the popular employee referrals, the buddy schemes you have. Correct. And then you have the placement agencies or the staffing partners with whom you work. There are freelancers who are into recruitment, and there are employment bureaus you want to associate with, and various academic institutions. These have been the traditional sources of candidate information, database, getting the CVs and details of the candidates. But given the advancement in technology, all that can come on a simple single platform. While there are different, each of these sources have their own merits, but job portals even today are very popular. And there are social media based sourcing that happens. LinkedIn, for instance, Facebook, for instance, you have even Twitter is widely used to source, identify people. Now the candidate information, your potential candidate is across the cloud, sitting in the cloud somewhere. All you need to do is be able to track where is he, what is he doing, does he have the relevant skills. So primarily you are putting the analytics and trying to identify what are his strengths, whether he is interested, is a passive candidate or active candidate. These kind of analytics can be run. However, given your unique requirements, what you might do is, while you may pull all this information from the net, from various sources, end of the day, it has to integrate into your own recruitment application or the automation process. Again, then you do a little bit of slice and dice and see whether they are relevant. All these things can happen. So in a way, it's like a loose tight model. Your platform is a global platform. You have to zero down. You run various searches and see how relevant it is. Is it available? And that is how you reach out to the candidate. So if you ask me, any recruiter today is looking at, besides, of course, they're married to certain portals. That is for more of bread and butter. They have up to 60% of their hires still come, if they're using job portals, 60 to 70% of hires come from there. Then that 10-15% probably come from social media. A lot comes from the internal reference, buddy reference. So I would recommend, I think, I see myself doing a lot of dependence on these sources. If you provide them a front end, all agencies can log into, they can have their unique credentials, login password, they can dump their CVs there, whether it is candidate referrals, whether it is placement agencies, whether it is freelancers, or whether social, or most of the people do also on employment bureaus, they do for community work. So they say, okay, let me find a job, and these are the possible places jobs.
I think we lost Deepak. Probably some
I
connection
think
issue.
the net is
Yeah,
playing.
he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, Narayanan.
Deepak, you need to unmute yourself, please.
I'm muted by the host.
Yeah, I have now unmuted you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I was saying that while there may be multiple sources through which you can get the candidate information, all the data is coming to through various sources to a single platform, which is sitting in your company. Back of it, you have an analyzer or AI-driven tool that can help you screen, shortlist, and then the rest of the process happens. So I would leave it at that at this point in time. Information from various sources coming through on a single platform, which is in your company base. You do whatever you want to do as per your internal process and systems.
Okay, so what I can gather is Civis coming from multiple sources,
Yep.
and we are gathering it at one place, and then using the technology. Am I audible?
Yeah, very much.
Ranu, there is an
Yeah.
echo. Probably you're joined with some other device also. Please disconnect the other device.
Yeah, I said what we learn, what we understand is that we are basically using the. I hope this is clear, guys.
Much better.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So we basically have been talking about various portals that we use, social media and internal reference, using the internal tools, and then we're basically trying to have the info as and when required. Narayanan, you've been one of the experts and the veteran in the talent acquisition space. Would you have a view on the way we are collecting the databases from the industry right now at this point in time?
Yeah, I'm hoping people can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you well.
Fantastic. So I'll tell you something that I'm trying to do for the last, I would say, roughly a couple of years right now. I'm sure most of us will know the concept of job distribution and job aggregation, right? There are so many technologies out there which can do that for us. One of the interesting solutions that I'm looking to do today, going back to what Dr. Deepak was saying a few seconds back, the crux of today's, how do I say, access to talent lies in your ability to broadcast your jobs, your available roles to all the available platforms, to all available channels, and also get the response back and put it back into a common platform that you can then sort out and then do your own filterings that is suiting to your company's culture and demands and all that stuff to be able to get back. So that's the crux of the matter. Today, by virtue of, if you look 10 years ago, you didn't have this kind of technology to be able to do it. Today, by virtue of this job distribution and job aggregation technology that's available you can very easily distribute your roles, and then the roles can be actually made more attractive and all that to various channels. You can get responses from all these channels, put it back into a common place that you can actually sort and take it forward across, right? That's the most interesting technology today, at least in the initial stage of the talent acquisition process, where it helps recruiters significantly to be able to cast the widest net possible and also capture the most responses from there, and then use your internal guidelines and screening methodologies to be able to filter out the best talent. So you have access to either it's a gig channel, which is the freelancers, or if it's the traditional job boards or the new age social media, you can actually cast the net as wide as possible.
Okay, perfect. I'll go to, just wanted to check, while there are too many products available today, we talk about digitization, we talk about multiple things. One thing which I want to check, what I understand, and when I talk to certain people, when we are in the talent acquisition, talking to certain people in the talent acquisition space in the front line, my understanding is they find using a technology at times becomes a burden for them. How do you look at these platforms how do we look at it in terms of implementation? And when we buy, the scope is pretty large. Do we actually implement the entire scope? And what are the key issues that we face then when we are trying to implement such robust platforms? Deepak, I just want to understand and check if you can answer this part.
Thank you. See, primarily our experience has been, we have till date, I think, tried at least, not at Magic alone, in my previous companies as well, but 4 to 5 different softwares that we use HR, which is end-to-end, the entire modules of HR are in one single system. So if you are taking an end-to-end HR system, then you have got no option than to go for all of it. Probably you want to put the payroll part a little different, but otherwise, recruitment, the employee service, the performance management, compensation, you know, attendance, leave and attendance module, employee service, part of it, all that end-to-end you got to implement. However, you need to have you need to be disciplined yourself. The tools are multiple in the industry, and most of them are good. But as I think technology has improved quite a bit, we have a better understanding of the product and using technologies, how to integrate. Today we are much more mature in terms of the product development per se itself and the way it is implemented. We have also learned over a period of time. So today it is much more easier. The real problem comes where? Is when the company that is implementing becomes too ambitious. You know, what I mean by that is they do too much of customization. When you do too much of customization, then you're actually killing the core of the product itself, because the product is designed. You have to tailor make, you know, customize a bit, bespoke, little bit of as per your needs. But if you do it too much, then I think it will lose it will be doing it at the cost of something else. And one thing leads to another. End of the day, then you realize, oh my God, this has become an elephant now. So it's very important to have that kind of discipline. If you don't, then you may run into implementation issues and various technical issues and data integrity issues, security issues, all that. Today, security issues I would put at the top. Whether you customize it a lot or not, I think most of these products, global products, security should not be a problem. But at the end of the day, if it is coming into your system, you got to have a very soundproof, sound and very security-proof systems. Proper IT security you need to follow. Otherwise, you know, a lot of information can be at risk. Therefore, tools are plenty, but the options to deploy the technology also are plenty. So you need to be mindful about which tool you're using, what is your requirement, is it in line with your other similar products and systems in the company you're using, can it integrate seamlessly? Otherwise, you can have a great system, but if it's not able to integrate with your CRM or the finance module or in a procurement module, then you're going to have a problem. So therefore, I would say 3 things. Number 1, tools are plenty, options are there, but you need to be very careful, selective, mindful about does that integrate seamlessly with the rest of the systems in the company, number 1. Number 2, resist the urge to customize a lot. Third is about take care of your IT security issues. I think this should help you.
Deepak, you were talking about customization, too much of customization, which is not advisable. But don't you think every organization has a certain way of doing business, and there'll be certain amount of customization which comes in?
I would say if you ask me what should be the level of customization, I would recommend not more than, I would say 20%, not more than 20% is good. It's difficult to arrive at that percentage. You got to see, are you killing the essence of the product? Okay. Actually, it's like you almost keep on doing. It's like a chicken and egg. You do something, then you realize, wow, it's getting the. Why don't I do the next one? And over a period of time, you realize that the entire product itself has undergone change. All you've gone outside the box. Inside, everything has changed. It does happen, but then that pursuit is very exciting for the people who do the customization, and then they realize, oh my God, what was it and what it has become. The other issue comes here is not only run into situations created by your own self, but when the product release, the next version comes, new updates come, right? Then you are going to have a whole lot of challenge there. because the product is developed by somebody else sitting outside your company. The next one, nowadays, given the IT issues, security issues, the IT threats, information security, there's so many, small releases that come to fix certain things. And if you don't upgrade your system, then you will be outdated. And tomorrow there is an issue with the product itself, something gets stuck. Then they say, hey, listen, you are on version 3.57, whereas we're already on 7.7. So sometimes you burn your fingers very badly. You have got to stick to the basic, sense of the product. You can do a little bit, you have got to do that. It's like, buying a ready-made shirt, but something is a little bit of thing, then you do only that part. You don't change the collar, put a different color, and put some more stripes, and it looks good, cut here and there. You can't do that.
Actually,
Perfect.
Ranu, can I add on to that?
Yeah, please.
Okay.
Yes.
So the point on customization is quite valid. In fact, in the current organization as well as previously, what we have seen is that there was an in-house product that we would have created, which was a customized product, but then it could possibly not keep up to the pace in terms of the various changes to what we want. But yes, some level of customization is important. So as an analogy, what I would say is that, okay, if you are staying in a 2-bedroom apartment, you can change the furnitures there, you can move the furnitures around here, but you should not change the dimensions of the rooms.
Yeah.
But it's a very important part, because it just becomes too complex after 2 or 3 iterations. Okay, I want this, but then you don't know what you are getting into after a couple of years.
So important point, Vivek. I think when you said change the room furnitures, but don't change the dimensions. My question to Narayanan and you both, I just wanted to check what happens in certain cases when we are talking on the same thing. We are customizing a platform because every company has a standard operating process, right? While the IT firm or the product which we are buying follows a particular SOP or standard operating process as the flow pattern. Are we then not, don't you think when we buy a platform, we have to change the entire flow of the platform or the entire processes of doing the business then inside the organization to ensure that the product's functionality remains intact?
So I'll go first, and then maybe we'll probably respond. Right. So here is a perspective that I use when I'm looking at any kind of implementation, right? The first I do is we spend extensive time on doing 2 important things. One is, what do we want? We have to be crystal clear in terms of what's our process, what's the organization culture, how are we doing things now, do we know our pain points areas, and why are we looking at buying a software to be able to fix that gap, right? And what objective we want to meet, whether we want best practices coming in, do we want efficiencies coming in, or do we want, or is automation the only scope that are coming in, right? So that's one of the questions. Once you understand what you exactly want internally, then the most critical part in any of these software that I have bought till date is the due diligence, which means you understand the software to be able to say whether it meets your needs or not, right? And when you're able to find a software or a platform that closely meets your needs, then it goes back to what Dr. Deepak and Vivek were saying, that customizations will automatically reduce because you found something that is more closer to you. You just have to make a little bit of tweaks, right? And that's where your customization comes in place. A lot of mistake happens today with my experience is that you buy something because you feel it's good, or the sales guy has done an outstanding pitch and you think it can give a lot of value, not truly understanding whether that will fit into your culture and your company or not. As rightly said, Ranu, every company has a very unique way of doing things, right? Very unique culture. That is the biggest part in any software buying or any software implementation. You fix that one, then it's like you going into a garment shop, right? You do all the trials of the shirts that you like, and then you pick up the size that fits your shoulder, that fits your whatever physique and all that stuff, and then you go choose your colors and all that stuff. Same process. You need to know exactly what you're doing in, get in. Then you can always have those customizations done in, which will be very minimal. So you keep the core of the product and it addresses your core objectives, and then you're able to implement the product, make those small tweaks, and then make it work for the firm.
Perfect. Vivek, you were saying something?
No, so I think Narayanan already covered. So the vendor selection part becomes very important. It should not happen that, okay, this is the new vendor or this is the best vendor that's available. Let's just work out and then figure out a way to customize the entire thing. You need to figure out what is your process, what is that 1 point pain point that you are trying to address, figure out a vendor. Obviously, if you are able to address that pain point, there might be certain tweaks in your own processes that you might have to do. So it might be quite possible that, okay, you have to let go of certain processes within the organization, and you might have to absorb some of the processes that the new technology is bringing, as long as the pain point that you have addressed. For example, for me, an application tracking system per se might not be a main pain point. For me, there might be a cost of poor quality, or the recruitment analytics, or the recruitment marketing, that might be a main pain point. So if the tool is just about fine in terms of application technology platform, but they are providing me these additional features, I might possibly go ahead with that tool versus a tool which provides, say, possibly a seamless end-to-end experience. It just depends on what is the pain point that you are trying to solve through technology, because there are right now hundreds of technology that's available right now, and you cannot have everything. It's important first you identify your pain point and then work out identifying the right technology.
Perfect. I think very well addressed. In fact, my next question is, when we're talking about so many technologies, everybody understands that one implementation by itself, selection of a product is a task. Once the selection is done, I want to understand how easy it is from a management perspective, and at the same time getting your entire team internally in the system, right? From all the functions have to get aligned, right? Because you're doing recruitments for all the functions, including sales, marketing, finance, HR themselves, operations, various verticals. So how do you ensure that the implementation and this management of platform happens? What has your experience been? Vivek, more from you, because you've been from a very, very different space, a brick and mortar space. So you may have your own set of challenges, people, national manager traveling somewhere. You have the sales guys happening somewhere. Interviews, you don't have a fixed location for interviews. So question is, how do you basically manage and implement such robust platforms up to the last level, from HR to the sales or to finance and other teams?
See, our learning has been to get the buy-in early before even buying the platform. So we try to figure out what are the pain points a sales manager might be facing, what are the pain points a finance guy would be facing, what are the functions facing, and then you might possibly hear that the sales guy is saying that we get that candidate travel from, say, Hyderabad to Chennai or Hyderabad to Bangalore, and then in the first 5 minutes itself we find that the candidate is not relevant as per the skills. So it saves it then wastes a lot of time. Then there are travel costs, etc. also that gets involved in the entire process. So how can we make the initial screening process much more robust? And that's why we started with an online video interview where through chatbot and through AI, there could be questions and you need to address those questions. So there is a first round of interview that's already there. And then only possibly for the second round, you call the candidate here. Now we have also moved towards an online assessment where through the assessment, we are able to we know what is the success profile for a particular role. Okay, these are the skills that are mandatory. These are the cultural traits that are mandatory. Throughout the online assessment, we are able to identify those culture traits, and then only we call the candidate here. So we figure out what are the pain points that the hiring managers or the supervisors are themselves facing. And then we try to say that, okay, these are the 3 or 4 tools that's available in the market, but this is that one tool that could possibly solve the problem. And then we get the buy-in at the same time, especially from HR lens. So while there might be 1 or 2 people, key people who might be involved in the implementation of it, what we also ensure is that at the time of testing, at the time of designing itself, there is a buy-in from different people. There is a buy-in from the factory HR guys, there's a buy-in from the sales HR guys, etc. So that whatever pain points could be there, even from international geographies, whatever pain points are there, we are able to address that at the design space itself. Because once you get about with the implementation of it and then changing the design itself becomes a recurring task. So the main thought would be to get the buy-in as early as possible.
Perfect. Deepak, you have any view on this, Deepak?
Yeah, like I said, there is a saying, to discipline somebody, you have to be disciplined. So whenever we are going for any system, we need to be very careful about how much I need to customize, number one, as I said. Number two, you need to plan for at least 3-4 years in a next. You can't just do it for a year. You have to see if today my headcount is 1,000 people, what has been my average growth? So let's say every year you're adding on 250 people. So you have to plan for at least 2,000 people or 1,800 and plus, or plan for that. The system has to have that kind of capacity to be able to grow. Like, it's like, again, pipe. When the water flow is more, it expands, and when it is less, it contracts. Right. That's one. Second is about what kind of partners, what kind of support aims you are getting. Is the product the company itself is providing a team, or are you planning to use a partner recommended by them? What are the dependencies? More often, what we have run into is the employees of the partner organization themselves, the attrition is very high. So you are caught in web there. It's very important to have 2-3 people within your own system, a company, who are trained and who are with you for a long time basis. That know-how should be with you. It's only for new releases, anything comes, any technical, which is more also functional, which is to core to the product. Only for that dependency, only we need to depend on the service provider. Otherwise, so these are the 2 precautions. Third is getting people. You need to tell people, guys, we are getting into this kind of systems. The system is going live after 6 months. We expect that to happen. So you need to prepare the people. If yours is the only system in the company, first time you're introducing an automation, and that happens to be HR, then you have had it. The company, the culture has to have, the culture in the company should be where a lot of automation has happened, then it becomes much easier from moving from one system to another, because you got to start all over again. You need to teach, train people how to use. There will be issues, how you're going to roll out that. So before the actual release date, you need to get the people psychologically into this. A dry run should be there. Lot of demos should be organized. They need to have a pilot, or week or 2 weeks. There should be a parallel. Both the systems are working. Slowly you close on this tab. People moving into the main system, and then watch over for a month and make them feel that experience of using the system should be really good, because nobody likes change, in general, because they like status quo. They don't want anything to change, because change is always disruptive, and people are scared and they don't like any change. They got to change themselves, so it becomes more. So you have to make it more seamless, easy to adapt, and you need to be able to show the value. What is it for them? How is their life becoming easier? Service levels. You put the SLA. It cannot be 5 days to respond to an email or a transaction. They should be able to see, and they should be able to see their own profile. How are they going? Their learning and development needs. Every small little dashboard should be available. Applications and everything, the advantages, the benefits the system offers. Then you're preparing people to come into the system. The more they use, the good for us. So these are 2-3 things I would recommend.
Perfect, Deepak. Thanks for your inputs. I'm sure so important point. To discipline someone, you need to be yourself disciplined.
Yeah.
I think that's a very important point. Narayanan, my next question is to you. We've heard about IT firm talking about their experiences, and we're talking about a brick and mortar business with Vivek on the other side from Marico. And you come from the consulting domain with a robust, large experience in the talent acquisition space. I just wanted to understand, Narayanan, how are you guys, what is your experience in terms of managing such robust platforms? In fact, you've seen a merger and acquisition where 2 large giants got merged, right? So you would have evaluated with 2 platforms. So wanted to understand such robust platforms that you guys buy for organizations which are large in size, and you manage from implementation, you manage training, you manage various other aspects, performance appraisals. What are the best practices that you follow for managing such robust platforms at your level in your organizations that you work, or what has your experience been so far? Narayanan? Narayanan, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, very much.
Hi, I think it was a audio issue. So when you're in a mergers and acquisition kind of a scenario, right? You're trying to bring in 2 diverse organizations together, and then the whole challenge of bringing them together from a system technology process standpoint. So,
Slight
two important
disturbance in the
areas
network, Narayanan.
and I'm talking about merger, right? One is
Slight disturbance on the on your. Can you hear me? Your voice is cracking, Narayanan.
Maybe you can switch off the video for this response.
let me do that.
Yeah, this is better, Narayanan.
Okay, can you hear me better?
Much better, much better.
Okay, maybe the video is taking a toll.
The flaw on the technology.
So
when we
again, let me just quickly
implement
repeat. What I'm saying is yeah. So this is a fundamental challenge, right? You'll have to understand the restrictions in which you work, and that was one of the key things that we look for, right? When I do implementation of a system, right? I mean, in a merger acquisition scenario or in a green field or not so a green field, right? You have multiple advantages. What I normally look for, what I do is three things, right? One, the first thing that we did right now is to find out what restrictions or what boundaries you're working on. And that's very important to understand the boundaries, to be know where you can cross and where you cannot. Second is the entire implementation team, as I would call it, right? Typically in an implementation team, there is a lot of focus on the technology folks coming in because this is a technology implementation. The team is probably heavily skewed towards technology folks. But what I have actually learned is that in your implementation team, the skewness should be actually a little bit more towards functional folks, right? Because when you're getting a platform and all that stuff, most of the functionalities are in there. You're trying to actually come in and install the application, a lot of say. But to make it work, your technical team will only give you the technical capabilities of it, right? But for it to actually work, the business process to work, you need functional experts on the team to be able to look at that product, that process, functional wise, and see how it needs to be done, how it needs to be configured to be able to work for your firm, right? And the third most important component of my implementation team is the change management team, and they are right there from day one to be able to understand what is the as is, what is the pain point, and why we got an end, what is the to be state, and to be able to map everything from the current to the to be state and do the entire change management as part of the implementation. Now, again, most processes will tell you that finish your due diligence, finish your implementation, then do change management and education. Actually, best practices today will say that change management comes as part of implementation right from the day one, right? And if you do that, and for which your implementation team is very different, right? You have a core team, you have functional experts, and then you have whatever, right? Change management experts, and then you have your end user, so to say, whom you're impacting with, right? Change management runs through all of these people, and it has run from day one. If you get these three parts together, I mean, it's easier said than actually done. But if you get these three parts together, then your implementation has more chances of being successful in the firm rather than facing headblocks.
Okay. Narayanan, just a question. Maybe it would be slightly away from the discussion that we're talking about. You mentioned about change managers, right? So
yeah.
Who would be your change managers ideally if you're implementing in certain organizations which are not to adopt to changes so easily? So how do you identify that? Companies like PwC may have change managers in place. How do you look at some other organizations, and who can be the change managers according to you?
So change managers for me are two important traits. One, from a person, individual, they have to have a very open mindset, ability to learn, ability to think, see things very differently. That's the characteristic of a person. It's got nothing to do with either of his qualifications or skills or whatever, right? It's just the mindset of the person to be able to open and understand. Two, again, I've seen change managers who are successful, who are functional experts of the process or the function that we're looking to make that change, make the technology implementation, right? Again, most time change managers are pure project managers who come and give you some whatever good Gantt charts and RACI charts and all that. It actually doesn't really help if you bring in a functional expert, and when that functional expert is able to take it to an end user of that function, to be able to talk in their terms, in their day-to-day lives, saying, hey, this is how we are doing it, this is why you're looking to do it differently, and you have this platform, and here are 1, 2, 3 things that will actually help you. Can we have some hands-on exercise and all that stuff? That makes change a lot more easier and a lot more successful.
Okay. Vivek, just a small question, which in continuation to what Narayanan said, Narayanan specifically mentioned about involving functional experts. Even in fact, Deepak also mentioned about involving the functional experts. I just wanted to understand specifically more from you. There are a lot of sales guys in the field. There are a lot of in FMCG vertical specifically. You have a lot of people who have matured over a period of time, and they're not very comfortable in, or rather not adaptable to technology. What do you guys face any kind of a challenge in implementing any platforms there, where even the seniors, while they're involved in the discussion, but implementation at time becomes difficult?
So that happens. No denial on that, because not whatever best effort you put, in spite of that, there might be an implementation challenge. So, for example, from an interview assessment point of view, what used to happen over a pen and paper, sometimes it still happens on a pen and paper still. But what we try to do is that we just try to pick up 2 or 3 green balls in the system. What we say, 2 or 3 guys who might be more open to change from a sales selling system point of view or from other functions point of view. Work closely with the HR BPs and those guys to then tell them that what are the benefits that you are actually getting from it. It could be in the form of quality of sourcing. It could be in the form of quality of hire. It could be in the form of the kind of culture fit that you are able to get from the talent. So you just show these guys the proof of the pudding that, okay, yes, by adopting this technology, what are the potential possible improvement or the possible shift that could happen, and then take them. So yes, change management, you might not say that, okay, starting from now, everyone will start using this technology. That's almost a way of pushing it. Yes, we also try to push it, but at the same time, we also try to get sponsorships through some green balls in the system who knows that, yes, this is important, this is relevant, and then that starts having a ripple effect on the other teams.
Okay. I just wanted to check also one more thing. While we spoke a lot about talent acquisition and different kind of optimization and different kind of technologies coming in, how do you look at talent management, talent development? Where do you see artificial intelligence helping you in the so far, and how do you look at next 2 years down the line where more digitization and AI may be used in the entire scope or in the entire sphere?
So in some cases, we have started using AI based and post the talent acquisition. See, post the talent acquisition, there is also a piece on onboarding. There is also a piece on employee experience and the entire settlement, that it takes a while for someone to settle in the new organization. And that's where we have a tool called Amber, where Amber is actually a chatbot kind of thing, where after every particular milestone, say a 30 days after joining an organization, or say 6 months after joining an organization, there will be an automatic conversation that would happen through AI. Okay, how has your day been? What are you liking? What are you not liking? How can we improve, etc. It's almost a mood sensing kind of tool, and the result of it directly goes to the CEO, so that he knows that what are people actually feeling. It's rather than waiting for an end engagement survey. Yes, we do have engagement surveys which gives a better structure and analytics, but it's also important that what are people feeling and how can I address it immediately. And in different forms it exists in the selling system also, especially at the time of month end or something. How confident are they in terms of achieving the targets, etc., etc. We try to do those things. In the area of talent development also, what we have done is we have tied up with the Edcast. It's again a AI based learning platform where it's almost a Google for learning. So where through that you can go to Udemy, Coursera, you can look at other contents, articles that's available, and basis what you are consuming, it will keep throwing on other recommendations. It's almost like a Netflix, how Netflix actually works. And whatever you are doing, basis that there are other tools. I personally like watching a lot of videos through that platform and reading through articles, and then articles related to that from my own self development. And that is something that we have implemented. We need to now move into a phase in terms of skill assessment. Okay, from my level at my function, or for a sales function, or for a finance function, marketing function, what are the kind of skills that's needed? I can possibly do a skill assessment. Basis my skill assessment, the system can themselves throw that what are the kind of learning platform that's available, what are the learning tools that you should look at, etc. That's going to be the next level from a development point of view. uh, we have SuccessFactors as a platform. Obviously, there is a part on career and succession planning and performance management. So yes, to a large extent, we have started adopting AI in our day-to-day use, basis the pain point that we had identified.
Perfect. Deepak, wanted to understand how do you look at AI helping you in various other aspects of HR, talent management, talent development, and various other aspects that you're looking at?
It has immense, I think some of the companies are using, I wouldn't say most, but a lot of applications, many applications have been developed, are being developed, or being launched based on AI in every phase for any HR cycle, employee cycle. Largely, I think today popular more with the recruitment talent acquisition, but in L&D space also, like Vivek said, it can customize it. AI can tell you, Deepak will need what kind of training programs. You know, what have been his achievements in the past? In which projects has he excelled? Right? What skills has he demonstrated? Basis that it can also recommend you what kind of courses, the next courses he need to do. What could be his next possible career move? But then you need to have a lot of historical data. And we know how much historical data of employees we keep, where the average employees, tenure of an employee is 18 months in a company. You know, it may be easy to maintain, but nowadays I think things are changing so drastically and very fast. And, that, you know, people are no more valuing that, you know, maintaining historical data, integrating with the time, and use the AI tools to do something and forecast for future needs. But yes, to answer your question, AI has immense potential. They can be deployed at in every phase of HR cycle and also employee cycle in any company. Definitely it is there.
Okay. Narayanan, thanks, Deepak. Narayanan, I just wanted to check one thing. For recruitment partners like us, wanted to understand today there is so much of automation that comes into the system. Where can you look at having strategic partners which can bring in a certain amount of technology, and how can you guys at the corporate level benefit? Because you would be seeing multiple corporates as well. What is your view that a recruitment partner like us can bring onto the table and help you in implementation and monitoring of the platform as well?
So Ranu, two things I'd see, right? One is you use technology at your end and bring it as a service, right? You bring the outcome of the technology as a service to corporates, where the quality of the service that's coming in has a very high, what should I say, point of recall, a very high value as compared to the technology itself, right? The second thing is that you bring in the technology, right? I always look at HR recruiting firms, HR software point of view, that you have access to so many organizations, you know, so many practices, and you can easily create a best practice out of it. And you can bring that best practice into a corporate. You also understand one of your client and you understand them more deeply. You'll be able to bring in that best practice and see how we can create value for them. So to summarize just two things, right? You could use technology at your end and use that to give very quality service as an outcome. Or you could bring in all the best practices that you see in, put that into a technology, and then allow the technology to be customized at the client side by having a deep understanding of the client that you work with. Those are two significant value adds that I think every HR outsourcing firm or who has multiple clients will bring to the table.
Okay. Any specific areas where you want us to, where you think can be brought in? Any kind of analytics that can be thrown onto the table by the same firms?
No, in the entire scope of HR, if you call from it, right? If I have to talk from hire to retire, right? In that concept, every space, I think I think HR outsourcing firms can come and play value to us, right? In recruitment, it's that much more easier because you have a little bit more technology as compared to other facets of HR, like what Vivek talked about, Dr. Deepak talked about in learning and development, in performance management. So we are trying to deploy technology in performance management and talent development right now, where we are trying to, like what Dr. Deepak said, we are doing assessments, both psychological and technical, that is behavioral assessments and technical assessments, and then feeding that into a learning platform, which is AI driven, to be able to say what part of that training to that next level or next career path should be knowledge driven and should be whatever practical experience training driven. And then that is an entire learning plan that is developed for him for a period of time. All of this is actually being done through technology, obviously bespoke technology, and we are working on integrations and all of that stuff, right? That's a places that you can definitely come in and give us information on what other companies have seen doing it. Again, bring that as a service or bring that as a technology platform that you have learned.
Perfect. Vivek, would you have a view of this, Vivek, in terms of the expectations that you would have from a recruitment partners like us?
So analytics would be the main expectations. A lot of times what happens is that because you are involved in the hiring process, and there is an urgency, and you see a culture fit, a lot of times we move from one position to other position, but sometimes we miss the trend. What kind of trend? Okay, members from these companies are doing better, members from these companies are more relevant from a culture fit. This and it could be position wise. Okay, for sales, these are the target companies from a fitment and from a performance point of view. This is what is working, this is what is not working. Because see, we generally come at the second step of it at the time of shortlisting or something, but you might be experiencing something. uh, in fact, one of the time we also did a project where we asked the recruitment vendors, what do people think about our company? Because you might be speaking to 100 people, and possibly only the 10 or 20 might be reaching us, but we
Right.
don't know what's the thought process of the others 80. Why are they selecting us? Why are they rejecting us? What is working, what is not working? So that kind of qualitative insights actually becomes a lot more useful to us. How do we then work out in terms of our internal processes? How do we work out in terms of our recruitment marketing strategy?
Perfect. Perfect. I think Deepak, do you have any view on this particular aspect, Deepak, from an IT perspective? You may have different aspect in terms of assessment test, IT skill sets, technical skill sets.
Oh, huge. Totally agree with him. I tell you, I mean, the possibilities are humongous, and they're easy to implement as well. Uh, Definitely, yes, performance management is what I missed. You can link to right from the recruitment. The one is, it's the beauty of the AI. Before you select them, it will tell you who could be your potential employees. You know, and while you are selecting them and the assessment is being done, it will tell you what are his strengths. And then if you put the historical data there in the first 1 year, from the date of joining to the kind of projects he has done after the, right? And the first appraisal happens, then it will link, see why I said this at stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and then it will say these are the learning needs of this gentleman. He is good at that, he can be a potential candidate or high performer, or he could be a good trainer, you know. At every stage, it's like, you know, it senses the signal, and once the signal is transmitted, how the signal is going into, you know, the medium, and how it is responding, working and play. So if you deploy AI at every phase, then you can build a nice story, and then you can forecast. You have actually mapped the guy's career.
Okay.
Yeah. So it needs a very disciplined way of deploying AI at each stage, and trying to see what the messages are coming at each point, and try to link them, and then your story is ready. You work on it, you know, initiate, take certain steps, really, you know, encourage him to nominate him for those programs, put him in a fast track mode. Then you say, I've been able to retain people. You can also predict, by the way, attrition basis on AI. Interesting, but it can be done too.
How accurate is the data from attrition perspective? Because I've heard a lot of tools being used to predict attrition.
Well, I'm saying about the potential. Basically, it is like early warning signals.
Okay.
Right? Early warning signals you can capture. Starting, the rudimentary is the attendance. How he is delivering on the project. You have to track that. How many times is volunteering? Right? What kind of issues is he bringing? Right? And what suggestions? How engaged he as an employee? You have to develop those, you know, 5, 6, you know, steps there at each point, and then link it to his general, you know, participation, motivation levels. Is he a influencer, positive influencer, or is he, you know, a rumor monger, you know, likes to get into conflicts, you know, difficult to work with people or with teams, and making, you know, very irresponsible statements about the management, and, you know, things like that. How does it deal with customers? You can link all these behavior patterns, then say, oh, it's a red, it is orange, it is green. Right? And if you're a performer and are seeing in a performance track on the dashboard, you're seeing a red mark, immediately you jump and say, hey, what's happened? Is everything fine? You know, then actually you're stopping that issue there becoming bigger. So you're intervening there. So to answer the question, can you predict the number? Well, we can get some number end of it. You put 3 numbers, you will get. The most important thing here is to realize that we are getting the early warning signals and interventions are formed based that we are arresting the. In fact, recruitment also we have recently started. It is not AI based, but with every recruiter, whenever a candidate is recruited, how do we improve our quality of hiring? That was the issue we are grappling with. Okay, so we said, how do we improve the quality of our hiring by our recruitment teams? So we just we got all the recruitment people in team together in the room. We started whiteboarding and brainstorming. So we said, okay, fine. See, let us keep it first level, very simple, and then you can improvise. So first level, what we did was, every interviewer, every candidate is first interviewed by the HR person. So HR person has to really, he knows how to interview, what questions to ask, how to make his own assessment. Basis that he will give on parameters, 5 parameters, how he sees the candidate on stability. For instance, on a scale of 10, where do I rate him on stability? So I may give my own rating stability. Similarly, how do I rate him? His past performance was there. Basis the questions I ask as a person, right? Education kaisa tha, how is ability, communication skill, comprehension ability, decision making, certain things which are important, team building, teamwork from HR perspective. Okay. Then I have, we are saying one overall rating the recruiter gives to the candidate. Similarly, the candidate then he goes to line manager first interview. He has also a checklist of things he'll ask based on the technology and some simple questions. And then he also gives his rating. Then he goes to final interview, senior manager or the HOD of that department. He also gives the rating. All these 3 ratings, when the first appraisal is done, okay, and there's also prediction. HR gives what are the chance? Where does he see after a year where this person might? What kind of performance rating we are expecting this guy? The HR gives, also the line manager gives. Okay, I think he is definitely looks to be very smart. He should be 3 on a scale of 5, or a 6 on a scale of 10, or 8 on a scale of 10. This is prediction, forecast. And when the year-end appraisal happens, it is happening in a different standalone, right? Performance rating are given. A year before, a recruitment guy has predicted about his stability, ABC parameters. Interviewer said, after a year, I think I see him, he should be at 3 on 5, or good at these things. So we compare, and end of that 1 year, when you put both the numbers and show it to a recruiter or even the line manager, hey, listen, तूने बोला था 1 साल पहले, ये यहाँ पे रहेगा, ये rating, and number of times you get it right, actual performance versus what you rated him when you first met him. Idea about how good a behavior reader you are as an interviewer. You know what I mean?
Right.
So we are trying to, create something just to say people become more. The advantage of this is you're making the interviewer, the recruiter also, the line manager is also more responsible and accountable for the.
Yeah, there's the ownership that comes in.
Exactly. We're building an element of accountability, ownership, so people will take it seriously. Agar if I have hired 20 people, 18 are still there, and out of the 18, 14 are super performers, and out of those 14, 5 are fast trackers. They're making runs and hitting the ball well. That means we are saying you are a great recruiter. He's recognized. Hall of Fame mein usko aayega. Out of 20 candidates recruited, 5 are figured in this list. Something like that. And you can, yeah. Sorry.
You're making such a valid point. When we were at Deutsche Bank, we realized that there was one guy who was continuously hiring a candidate. He was continuously a guy who was pulled the performance down, and we realized that his, HR realized that his attrition levels have always been for 4 months, 5 months. No candidate stayed back, and at any point in time, he had continuous attrition. Still, we had to take action against the line manager only, and then the entire performance started going up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ownership definitely comes in.
Absolutely. We never thought about it for years and years. Been working. Last year in the business, I think leadership meet. My boss is very simple. Sharad Sanghi, is a CEO. He says, yeah, these are okay. You have hired 360 people. Deepak, good. I still see attrition is happening and blah blah blah. You've done so many training programs, but how do we improve the quality of hire? Simple one-line question. you know, and you are in that summit, you will give some ABCD, a long-winded answer. We'll do this, we'll do that. But then you end up, you know, Baba, I need to come with something concrete. So we went to the room, whiteboarding. We said, we'll do this. And next, after 3 months, that model was ready. We started, you know, tracking that. Then we say, okay, they're doing well as a line manager, not only HR, line managers also. Now, they know, Baba, I need to be really careful. So building, like you said, beautifully said, introducing an element of accountability and ownership.
Perfect. I think a very important point that every person is a HR and every person is a marketing guy. He sells himself, and every person has an HR aspect as he goes and moves up the ladder in the corporate curve. He needs to understand the human aspects of the piece very, very well, right? And that is where he becomes a leader in himself. What we'll do is we have certain questions from our guests. I'll thank Vivek, I'll thank Deepak and Narayanan for your views so far. And we had some questions from the panel, from our guests as well. I'll take it to Sunil ji. Sunil, the questions from your end to the panel.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Let me brace myself. I'll buy some helmet.
Yeah, Sunil, over to you.
Okay, thanks. I believe I am audible.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking
Thanks.
good.
Thanks, thanks Deepak, Vivek and Narayanan. It has been very good discussion and we got very good insights. And there are quite a few interesting questions which has come. We had some of the answers also coming in from Narayanan as well. However, I would like to throw it open to you as well, both of you, Deepak and Vivek, just to get some insights. I'll start with this first question, which has just come recently. How the sourcing of resumes can be improved using technology platform. Can you throw some light on this? Maybe Vivek, you want to take that?
I can get Deepak to also answer, but frankly, we do not deal with volume hiring. Our company largely deals with selective hiring for selective roles, and campus also plays a big role there. So yes, people might enter keywords, people might do various sort of things. There are AI tools that's available to figure out through different sources what kind of genuinity is there from that point of view. But so we have a select pool of companies and select pool of talent that we typically look at. So personally, after the first initial round, we know whether the candidate is up to the mark or not in terms of the basic filter that's there. So we personally do not face that kind of challenge.
Okay. Deepak?
I think sourcing is an art, definitely, because you may engage tools and AI and things like that, but you need to put some intelligence into it. What you feed in, that will report the same stuff. So a recruiter should be very cognizant about what is the core requirement of the job. So job description is a very big word, you know, so you suddenly remember so much of text will come up there. But you should be able to describe in 5 to 7 skill sets you want to see in that candidate. And nowadays candidates also fill in, they also become very smart. You know, they use these nice right words for every role. You know, Deepak can have 5 flavors, 5 different versions and use the right words. If I want to become comp expert, I may use comp words. You know, all that will happen. You know, likewise, both the parties have become smarter. So you are limited by that, right? You know, different versions of CVs, different ways of identifying, making a passive, you know, intelligence laga ke apne CV or done to the CV, you applied AI and it's throwing some data. But again, then it boils down to the interview part. So you have to improvise on sourcing is what is the origin of that source? Is it credible? If I'm taking a candidate who's working in already reputed organization, that organization known for something, then the chance of you know running into a bad candidate are less. Likewise, you need to also track the candidates. You know, when you're looking at a CV, and if he's a fresher, I can understand. But if he has worked in 5 different companies, 3 at his companies, then you know that this has been his career track and has been a consistent performer. That means you're running into already a good candidate. All you got to do is, excite him and make sure, he shows up for the interview and you do a right interview. So sourcing, how it can be improved is by doing a at least half an hour to 1 hour thoughtful table work is what is required for the recruiter. And then where are these skills available? What kind of companies am I going for? Right? What kind of, sources of these job portals or social media platforms, or where am I getting to get these candidates? You just can't, and even if the placement agencies if you're working with, they can be your good partners, provided you prep up. You tell them, hey, listen, you are not just a postman who is giving me the CVs. You got to do 1, 2, 7. And you need to tell me on my rating scale, where do you rate this guy and give me? Where does he meet on, how does he match on the skill requirement? Where do you think, the culture of the organization, things like that, to really prep them up, and they can be a good partners. So sourcing is online and technology you can use and everything you can do. But then if you don't do the basic stuff, then all that technology of no use.
That's a very valid point, Deepak. I think what you rightly mentioned, sourcing is an art, okay, and getting the right 5 R's right is something which a recruiter and a sourcing as a process needs to focus on. As such, Narayanan has already answered this in the Q&A box, but I would like to open this question to Narayanan as well. Maybe if you can highlight that and speak out here.
Sure, Sunil. So going back to what Deepak and Vivek were saying, right? Sourcing is an art, right? But I think today, by virtue of our technology coming in, I thought that art can be a little bit more augmented by science. And what I have done earlier is, there are today technologies like, for example, natural language processing, right? It's a fast-growing technology, and it's proving a lot of value. So for example, a very simple thing is it reads a resume like a recruiter, right? It understands the natural language. And then if you have a job description, it's able to match. And it's not matching keywords to keywords, it's matching an entire taxonomy of words and a taxonomy of skills. It's got a lot of libraries in today, right? And it's able to match that. And then it's able to tell you the top 5 that the recruiter should spend on. Ideally, what happens is recruiters spend 10 calls and spend enough amount of time, end of the day, after all that time, nothing works out because the candidate is bad, right? All the 10 calls went bad. And he's not able to get back or to the business or the hiring manager with anything. That can possibly be avoided by bringing in certain tools like this, sourcing tools like this, where you have natural language processing, and on top of it, you can put machine learning, right? So every time the system comes back, the natural language system comes back and gives you a resume, and the recruiter is able to say, hey, I like this resume, I don't like this resume. That's when the machine learning kicks in and say, well, the next time you do the search, it gives you more relevant resumes. So you have a little bit of science upfront into the sourcing process, and the science is able to give you a little bit more better shortlist. Then the art comes in, where the recruiter is now able to have focused conversations with 4 or 5 people, and then your chances of finding a good talent out there just a little bit more increases. So that's how I think technology and science, arts and science plays together.
Absolutely. That's it.
Okay. Thanks, Naren. I think it's correct. I think science does play, and that can help in terms of leveraging and moving in terms of improving the efficiency. I am opening one more question here. Maybe Deepak, you can start with. How ready are the Indian companies, or how Indian companies are adopting the technology in HR? Okay, maybe you would like to highlight that.
Since we have just begun to realize the value of AI, and last 8 years there has been a lot of talk and walk, AI, machine learning, right? And we are, I think, at the right time. A little more push is required for companies to adopt and embrace this change. However, a lot of that will depend upon how good this product is. Like every product or service, it will take its own sweet time to mature. I remember the same product products which are available now, when 3 years ago or 4 years ago, they came in a very different form. They said, we can do video interviews for you. You know, you don't have to call the candidate. You can just, he's not able to come. You can just do video interviews. We'll record it. You can play that, and you can do this, and then no dummy candidates risk is avoided. It really, everything revolved only around video interview. But today, you added one more element of, AI. You were saying I'm also adding the sourcing, then video part has become an element of the overall solution. With time, it will keep on improvising. But today, I think much more we are more open to use these tools. It's up to the HR leader in the company, and more so on the HR leader to see. No, we really closely wanted to look at it. We did look at the product, but when we had a couple of demos, we realized that the effort to configure the product, make the product really be useful, is far more required than, it is easy to make a call here. I think somebody said I think Kiran or somebody said, we still are using the pen and paper somewhere. So likewise, it is easy to just dial a number and talk to a candidate rather than, you're doing all those things to get the system ready for use. So that it should be easy to use, number one. Secondly, what price point is it coming? Is it going to change my current process? Third is, is it going to add overall, how efficient is that? These are some of the four or five points that will really decide. But are we ready as a nation or as a market? Definitely yes. If I go to my manager, my CEO, and say, hey, listen, there is a tool like this, it doesn't cost much. I wanted to just use this, and we need to invest in it. He says, will it make sense? Will it give good results? Will it give good quality candidates? Will it solve our problem? These are the 4 or 5 questions we'll ask. So before you embark on whether these people who are manufacturing the product themselves, they should say, these are questions that are likely to come. How do I, give them this answer? It is not just about building the solution and going to a company and say, pitch it, you have to put yourself in my shoes, do some case studies, and actually demonstrate when you're showcasing the product. Hey, listen, I know Deepak, the first time you launch this product, you will be looking at ABCD. This is what we have done. This is the analytics you have put. You can put any small, simple analytics tool and say, this is what you're going to get. So then it becomes much more easier. But are companies ready? Yes. Is the product worthy of that? Is it priced at that, that this thing? It's like, eating. I love to eat, what kind of fruit, Deepak, would like to eat? I'll say, I would love bananas. Kyun bhai, aasan hai khane mein. Tension nahi hai, chabane ka tension nahi. You don't have to. Eating a mango is a little tougher than eating a banana. I would prefer a banana. I think that will...
very well. very well placed analogy between the banana and the mango. Okay, it's a mango season. Everyone loves that, but it's banana.
Just to add on to that, one point I think Deepak has already captured, that a lot of Indian companies, there is a very high ROI mindset
Exactly
in Indian companies. So it is very important that how do you justify that ROI? That will decide whether the Indian companies, most of the companies are adopting it. The second thing is also, it depends on the kind of sectors that you are in. There are sunrise industries, there are sunset industries where large infrastructure related companies, or then there at one end there could be technology led companies that are coming up. Obviously in technology led companies, the new startups, the way they are coming up, the use of technology for recruitment might be significantly more higher compared to the other industries where change management itself might become a bigger part. So while yes, there is an ROI mindset, and if we are able to justify ROI, there are enough and more companies which are adopting new technologies. But at the same time, there might be certain companies where, because of the entire change management effort and the resistance that might be there, it might just go a little slow and might want to just see a proof of the pudding in other companies, other industries, and then possibly adopt it.
That has to be there. Business wants some ROI is necessary, but good, very good point. For Ranu and people like Ranu.
That was my next question actually on ROI. Good, Vivek, you covered that aspect. Maybe would you like to give some sort of an easy to pick up kind of a technology in the process, which would be faster to implement and would be economical to put in through in the company? What could be those ones which can be taken up?
Not clear, not clear. Can you just repeat once again?
Okay. What I meant was maybe you would like to highlight any particular technology or the process which can be easily picked up and a technology can be put in through that process so that that can be a guideline for some of the people you are hearing and can think about it and start putting it through in their organization.
A lot of effort is actually going right now in the application tracking in terms of the sourcing the right kind of profiles and scheduling the interview, etc. But for me, the main focus would be on recruitment marketing. What happens is it's a talent war. In our sector, getting the right talent, actually everywhere, getting the right talent becomes difficult. But there is a certain pool of talent, and then there are many companies vying for it. And you need to be from an employer brand, possibly be at the top quartile of that list. So what are the different touch points through technology that you can create? Obviously there is a social media thing that's there, but within say success factors or within any platform, are there marketing tools, are there recruitment marketing tools that could be there to reach out prospective applicants, to tell them about who we are, what we stand for, success stories, etc. That is one technology which I think is very important to implement, and that could actually, even from an ROI point of view, it is also not too difficult to implement, and from an ROI point of view, that would improve your sourcing mix to a large extent, I would say.
Okay, fantastic. I think what you covers in terms of recruitment marketing tool is a good way to start with. And Narayanan, I would like to open this question to you, even though you have answered that. Maybe just wanted to get a little more point of view from yours in terms of what could be the areas which could be the easy adoption and how you have done that at your end in.
Sure. See, for easy adoption and going back to what Vivek was saying, right? ROIs. What I have done is the easier way for you to get people used to technology as part of their lives is, for me, I started off with doing RPA, which is robotic process automations, right? There are a lot of processes which are in a lot of sense repeated. If you kind of break it down a little bit more, they're repeated work. You necessarily don't need a human being there doing it, and there may not be a value. Those are very good cases for processes to be automated using robots, right? You can just quickly develop a robot, complete, very, very cost effective, and very comparatively very high ROIs that comes up, right? But the most important thing that I have seen is it enables the mindset of using technology and being part of technology. I mean, technology being part of your day-to-day work, right? So I started off with robots, automating a lot of these regular processes and doing that. And then that gives us a good, how do I say, launchpad to be able to look at really serious softwares, really serious technologies that can come in. And when you do that, I typically do two things, right? I put this as part of the CTO's agenda of the firm. I mean, normally HR technology, HR runs it, and then there is this question of ROIs and all that stuff, right? As much as we run it, I've also figured out if the CTO's organization or whichever is the technology head organization of the firm runs it, it has a much better optics to it as compared to anything else, right? And that's also equally important in some of these technology initiatives because they have a longer ROI, right? You typically don't, and if you're an organization that lives quarter by quarter in terms of results and all that, it's very difficult to show a quarter by quarter improvement for a technology ROI, right? So those are two things that I have done. One is start off with bots. Second, when you have that fair understanding of, okay, people in my firm are now comfortable using technology, my next level of serious technology, I put this as part of CTO's agenda to be able to have a better result of return of investment on it.
Very nice, very nice.
I'll just need Narayanan, good point. I'm sorry, I'm intervening here, Sunil. Narayanan, can you just emphasize more? This is a very interesting point that you made it here, that once the technology is picked up or you pick up a technology and then you want the CTO to be involved in terms of management of a technology is what you said, and optimizing it
Yes.
further?
Yes. So in the return of investment, see, return of investment has two components, right? How do you optimize it so that you can ensure that your run and maintenance costs are lower? You don't have a huge run and maintenance cost, right? And then the ROI cycle is much more longer. That you need to be able to get your CTO organization coming in. But even before run and maintenance, if the firm has to realize the value of the technology coming in, the functional team or the functional owners will come and give you a functional business case and an optimization and effectiveness and its impact, right? Which is typically long term. A CTO will give you a much different view to the same technology as to how it can be componentized and used in other parts of the firm, which means it can accelerate your ROI, right? From a 10-year perspective. So that's where the CTO angle becomes a little bit more important to come in to the entire scheme of things of implementation, right? So I've stopped doing technology implementation where the decision is entirely mine. In fact, I go and put it in front of my CTO's box and say, hey, buddy, I need you to sign off on this and tell me if there is a different angle to it. And then we take that to the CEO and say, here is a combined view from the HR and from the technology office to say what's the values of the firm generated.
Perfect. I think
I wanted to add one. Yeah, please.
Yeah, please. I hope
Yes, sorry. Wonderful point you made. I think one of the easy ways to get the leg in the door is the HR people themselves must be very conversant, very aware of what kind of technology is currently being used for business purposes. HR ko to baad mein rakhte hain. Are there any automation tools already deployed? Is the company having an internal IT? What kind of technologies are they using? Because they have already made investment in those technologies and infrastructure and manpower. So once we understand these technologies they are using, right, then when you're talking to your HR vendors, you are certain if there are applications in those technologies, right? If it is there, then you hit the right first button well, and then evaluate the product. If you take a totally different technology, no matter how good it is, which is alien to your company, which needs higher investment, then your boss says, "Arey yaar, mata Deepak, jo ye hai na, why don't you is pe kuch karna वैसा ही solution, jana market में ढूंढ के, you know, ये सब होगा." Therefore, we need to see what resource assets I have, how can I use it for my function. That will be an easy way to get the leg in the door. And your IT guy also is on your side already, because already his team is working. There are maintenance teams and support teams that are there, and all the possibilities could be he might have already reached a maturity stage on that product and service for his function. But when he sees कोई और भी use कर रहा है तो उसका भी lifeline बढ़ गया. He's also very happy. You know what I mean? So
some important points.
Thanks, Deepak. Perspective. This was very interesting. Sorry, I was on mute. Thanks, Deepak, for giving your perspective. I think this was a very interesting point, and everybody wanted to know how to start, what can be done, and how we can take it. Okay, and really put forth by Narayanan in terms of taking the buy-in of the CTO. Okay, because that gives us a faster adoption and implementation. I have another question. Maybe Vivek, you can take this. Question from Malini, which says that will cultural traits of prospective employees be deterrent in hiring the resource? And if so, how? So since you are almost in every state in India or outside of India as well, so how do you manage this cultural traits part of it from prospective employees angle?
So culture for us plays a very important role. I would say that is the differentiator. And see, every organization has its own culture and has its own DNA. We thrive ourselves in being entrepreneurial. So someone who would be coming from a place which has a set systems and processes, and you are just replicating that, someone from that kind of mindset would not work. We pride ourselves in being an empowered organization where you are empowered to take your own decisions and then execute it. We are someone who would again focus a lot on ROI. part. Ultimately, we are not here for charity. We are here to make profits. So some of these traits, and in fact, we have mapped some of the culture elements, some of the behaviors that we need. And as part of our assessment, psychometric assessments, culture fit, etc., we try to see that how much of a fit the candidate is going to be from a culture point of view. Because see, if you are hiring from good companies, MNCs, a certain education background, MBAs or engineers or any kind of background that you're looking for, a certain amount of IQ is a given for me. So intelligence is never in question for me. It's the execution and the fitment to our philosophy of fitment to our ways of working. Uh, that becomes a very important part in our entire hiring process. So I would say that culture is a differentiator for us, and culture would be a differentiator for a lot of organizations, because there is a certain level of hygiene that's already there. What gets you selected or rejected is the culture part of it.
Good. Thanks, Vivek. Okay. I have an extension to this question, which maybe Deepak can take this. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Can behavior pattern be also assessed through AI?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but then validation will take over a period of time, because see, that is why there is a term called both moody hai, both sanki hai, you know. So our behavior itself is function of circumstances largely, our agenda, our priorities, and what we can afford or not afford. I may be a very short-tempered guy, but I will not dare to behave like that in my office because they are paying my monthly bills. You know what I mean? How much can I afford? However, let's stick to the environment. Environment is what you are in an office situation, and what should be the behavior of this guy, right? So largely within within those boundaries, we can say these kind of behaviors I want to measure this person. But there are other behaviors which at times show up during this time frame 9 to 6. So they invariably show up in such situations. And your measurement sometimes can go a little wacky. So, but yes, it can be, behaviors can be measured. They can be also forecasted. Like, there's so many HR tools that tell, okay, your leadership quotient is here, your spiritual quotient is this, your EM is here, right? All those things are there. Also, when we do the assessment, it tells how good are you as a team player, or are you a solo guy, These are very indicative. They cannot be taken at absolute value. Largely, this is what we are seeing, because you have answered these kind of questions in this way with this kind of consistency. Therefore, this is a prediction we are making about you. That is all. Now you want to put an AI to that, but then you have to simulate. It becomes a little more, complex to do that. But yes, it can be done. End of the day, it will not really. Still, you will go back to the. फिर भी सर आपको क्या लगता है? आप लीज को हायर करेंगे नहीं करेंगे? See that the human element you cannot avoid. It has to be there. It will be there. All the tools, AI tools and other tools, they're only helping you with the data. Choice आपको करनी है. If you're hiring a CEO, you have hiring a CFO, if you're hiring a HR head, an important role, you will not leave it to this AI tools. They may do their jobs, but you still will rely on the human intelligence. Yeah.
It's just bringing some objectivity to subjective process.
Sometimes vice versa.
No, I think the name says that this is human function, so human touch. जो last का है, okay. It could be tip of the. It could be just a tip, okay. So which becomes
high touch, high tech, high tech, high touch.
High tech, high touch. Okay.
Yes.
I have two last questions. Okay. This one is coming from Akshay Bhatkar. Okay. How software would solve the challenge faced in scheduling an interview with the interviewer and interviewee? Maybe Deepak, you would like to take this because you have large number of candidates where you need to interview. Okay. So how technology has helped you in this?
I think these are purely alerts going to the candidate. Basically, what it does is it will do the parsing. Right. First, the moment I put my search words, right, it will take those search words and do a massive scanning across various sources where these candidates are available. Right. If that source is limited to job portals or to LinkedIn or some social media, I can choose where I want to go. I want to go all over the cloud, in the globe. So I can pick and choose those platforms. So a massive scan basis that search can be the system does, and then I specify I want the candidate to be based in Mumbai, within 10 kilometers radius. We can do that. My is my headquarters. So system will again further filter it, and it will show say 20 candidates. Okay, and then I say I'll quickly take a glance of it. I say, okay, now Mr. System, send an alert. My already message is there. Message, hey, we've gone through your CV, you are blah, 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 we are interested. Are you looking for a change? We have an exciting opportunity for you. I want to personalize it. I say, listen, you've been there in the company for 3 years. I think you may be, so something like that. We have noticed you've got a wonderful stability. I'll talk 2-3 good things and, say, we have great opportunities. This is my link, go through. And if you're interested, yeah. Okay, are you looking for a job in the next 3 months or 6 months, or passive, active? मुझे system बता देगा. Is a passive looker or an active job seeker, right? I give him 2 options. He just picks one of them. If he says not interested, I give that option also. Not interested. Then after he is not interested, बोला after 6 months again go, भैया now are you interested? COVID आ गया, भैया are you interested? Then he will be interested because his company is terminating because COVID. I'm just throwing possibilities. You can use that. So sourcing becomes all the more easy. Schedule interviews also. Once the candidate says I am available, if you want to cut short that cycle, you can buy. Already you are asking the line manager, Baba, tomorrow are you free? Nah, morning make kar de, sham make kar de. So I tell give to candidate, okay, you have said yes. I have these options. Pick anyone. So it becomes easy, yeah. But sometimes you have to intervene also.
True. I think some sort of scheduling is possible to do through the technology, and it's not very difficult to do in today's adoption, because if Uber and Ola have been able to use Google Map and have done a large amount of business, I think this is just a mere technology of scheduling. Is not very difficult to execute and take it further.
Why I gave a long
answers. Have one question. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Deepak.
No, I wanted to add one line there, Sunil. See, why I tried to say we need to do all that in the beginning. Yeah, a simple answer could have been, yes, you can schedule, possible hai, calendar hai, phala hai, ye hai, WhatsApp. You can use the technology with some of the AI. See, nowadays, everything is going online. The personalization is missing. You need to excite the candidate. You need to have good touch experiences with the candidate. So therefore, you need to engage the candidate by talking about him, about your company, and opportunities available. Right? Ek do baar wo acha ho gaya milan, then he feels like coming on the call. He's not even coming physically, right? You may want to call him, but nowadays everything I see, बैठ के आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ मैं. Nowadays Zoom, thanks to COVID, people are really using. That is one of my fears. Candidates have more time now to take interviews. You know what I mean? Earlier, they were locked up. Sir, मुझे बाहर जाना है. कितने बार बात जाओगे? एक बार झूठ बोल सकता है आदमी इंटरव्यू के लिए जाना है. ये कितने बार बताएगा? यहाँ तो घर में कभी भी कुछ भी कर लो आप. Companies also have more time to coach. Candidates have more time to take interviews. So we have to really, it would be interesting to see how this COVID kind of situation, work from home, is going to aid or is going to aggravate the attrition issue or employee retention.
I fully agree with you, Deepak. I think this is the turnaround time or the closure, taking a decision for a candidate is faster because the interview gets done without any reluctance or on a schedule. My last question is coming. Okay. Of course, I think this is a case where bulk hirings are there, and you need to see what kind of screening you can do through an automation technology, because these days what you write is not what you have, right? Okay. And there could be some mismatch in terms of the technology and how technology can actually help in fetching the right candidate. Maybe Narayanan, you want to take this and explain how you have been doing this in your company?
Yeah, like I said, if it's just a control F of a keyword and a few things in the job descriptions that you want to go back, it's not going to help you, right? And that's why we spoke the concept of art and science, right? So if you have to source and screen right candidates, one, you'll have to have a very deep understanding of the business that you're hiring the talent for, what kind of business it is, what kind of talent are top performers in that business. So you need to have very good understanding of the business. And once you have that, then you can enable technologies to do some initial work, right? Like we talked about the most near fit, using the skill taxonomies available on to get you the top 5 or 10 candidates that you want to speak to. But then ultimately, that's where the human person comes in, recruiter comes in, to be able to say, call up the candidate, have a conversation with him, and have a very business focused conversation. Business focused meaning keeping the business in mind, or that, if it's that specific, that project team in mind, to say, hey, what kind of talent will fit this project team, and do the screening accordingly to be able to see if that's the best candidate you want to position to the business.
True. Deepak, you would like to add anything here? Because I think you are also doing the tech hiring.
Yeah. So the question is where you are doing bulk hiring?
Question is where there is a mismatch in the skill sets, how technology can help assess and source the right candidate.
Well, I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, candidates dress up their CVs.
Correct.
So they use all the best terms, which are in demand in their CVs. So, and the system is, because of the parsing, search and how it works, it will pick up those terms and you will have that element of, trash there. Okay. But when you do the first, so when you are hiring, first level is you have to, anyway, you are going to face that problem. If you cut it short, you can give him some basic 20 questions or 21 questions. Bhaiya, iska jawab de. Simple 5-minute test or 3-minute test. Ek bar wo jawab diya. See, sometimes people come with big and suddenly we ask, what is the server size for this kind of application? And if he gives me, sir, 10 tons, gaya phir, humko pata hai, isko kuch pata hai nahi. So you can introduce those checks and balances to revalidate skill sets. Is to eliminate by rejecting, identifying the low hanging guys, and then do a little closer look.
Okay. Thanks. While we were talking, I think there are a few more questions which have come up. So I think three have come, but I will club them into two. One question has come from Nilesh Mundra. He says, due to work from home scenario, what type of candidates will be there in demand? Juniors or freshers or the middle level? Also, what will be the impact on remuneration at all levels? This to anyone. I mean, you can.
Yeah, I think Vivek, want to add, please?
Yep. So I would possibly not restrict to a level, whether fresher or junior or middle. I would restrict it to certain skills, and that is a conversation that we have already started having, that there are certain niche skills that are there for which you are not able to get the talent so easily. For example, if I'm looking at a RPA as a skill, robotic process automation as a skill, it's quite possible that Mumbai per se might not have that kind of skill. Or if I'm looking at analytics kind of thing or digital per se, a lot of these skills might be residing in technology companies, which might not be necessarily available at my base location. These are the skills for which I might be looking at a work from home kind of solution, a consultant who might be working anywhere across the world, a freelance consultant who might be across the world. And then there are tools to get these gig workers. So there are tools like Flexing It, Upwork, etc. kind of platform that's already available. So that's the space that I would be looking at from a work from home point of view, rather than restricting it to a particular kind of seniority.
Okay, thanks, Vivek. I have another question which is related to work from home. Okay, which is quite generic, but what he's trying to ask is, do you predict work from home across the segments? I think we have seen that technology, it has been possible to execute work from home kind of scenario. How do you see that, Vivek, in FMCG? Is there a probability of becoming this a regular norm? I mean, is
So,
it possible?
so in
Yeah.
fact, in the media, we have already told that there might be, we would never return back to say 100% work from office kind of scenario. At any point of time, there would be say a 30-40% members who would continue to work from home. We are firming up, we are working with external partners in terms of how do we operationalize it. But there is, so there might be some roles which could be a permanent work from home. For the others, it might be more of a rotation basis that, okay, you might have to be in office only for say 10 days in a month or so. But definitely we are not moving to 100% work from office, and this is going to become a norm. In fact, in the FMCG space, we also read a news that one of the company has, in fact, uh, removed the head office itself. They are now renting out the head office to other companies because they don't see the need. Whenever there is a need, they might just move to a co-working space kind of thing, or rent the office space kind of thing. So that is very much happening. Yes, it might happen only for say a corporate office, not possible in a sales or a manufacturing location.
Correct, correct. How do you see, Narayanan, this work from home scenario covering up in audit or consulting kind of an area at PwC? How do you see that coming up?
So we're looking at it more from a roles perspective, right? Similar to what Vivek was talking about. It's more certain what roles, right? If you're an auditor, you obviously have to be at a client side to be able to access the systems, access his book of accounts, and then complete your audits, right? But then there are some part of audits which are more system driven, no security audits kind of stuff, which you can, in some sense, do remotely if you have technology connections, VPNs, and all that stuff enabled. So we're looking at it more role based. If the role demands that you have to have a physical proximity to that client, right, or to the end situation to be able to do that role, then yes, we are trying to take efforts to do that. But if your role demands that it's you can work individually at your home and still complete the quality work, then you can look at it. So again, going back to what Vivek was saying, it's not anything to do with hierarchy of management level or even experience. It's more about what skills the person have and what's the role and deliverable the person is doing, and whether it can be done remotely or not.
Okay. Deepak, would you like to add anything on this? I think technology has been adapting work from home quite from day one.
Yeah. I think both said about the there will be impact of what kind of segment or domain you are, the company's business. Technology companies, as you said, again, have adopted to work from home very quickly and easily because of the investments that have already made. And I think we will see with time, slowly this people trying to, the companies will balance and leverage on the benefits of work from home. And they will not blindly want people just to come to office. See, there's a lot of benefits actually working from home. There will be situations where employees are required to be in office also. So it has to be a good balance between both. And the sooner the companies realize is going to lead to some really ROI, bank mein paisa aane wala hai, so they will push for work from home. It will take a little while for segment wise because they're not ready yet there. But when they realize there is a money in the bank if you're spending less on the office space and electricity bills and commute and blah, 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 they may even touch when they see that too much of, money saving happening for the employers, either they'll cut down the increments, 12% नहीं देंगे, 8%, 6% ऐसा करेंगे, या फिर बोलेंगे कि भैया you're saving on your petrol, you're saving on this, and you get home allowance, but I'm not going to give you this. So all kinds of possibilities I'm seeing, but it will take 6 to maybe 12 months.
Okay. Thanks, Deepak, Vivek and Naren. I think it has been a very good insights on the Q&As which were put forth by a lot of people in the audience today. I hand it over to Ranu for the closing remarks.
Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Sunil. I think when people talk, I talk about one thing that the Kerala government has initiated because it's a tourism destination and there are a lot of IT companies coming there. Just wanted to tell you about work from home. Rather than work from home, what they're doing is trying to get certain hotel infrastructure. So there are small hotels. They're trying to come along with the Kerala Technology Park, and the Kerala government has initiated and creating 6,000 workstations where people can work at 5-6 kilometer distance. They can book the premises. All the IT companies can come together and do it. Second thought, which I just read, maybe the way we are booking the meeting rooms, when we have 4 or 5 meeting rooms inside the office, over a period of time, there'll be small infrastructure which would be called office. And maybe sometimes sales guys would book it. Sometimes the tech guys would book it because they call the entire team. That may also be a norm which we'll be looking at. Anyways, thanks once again, Deepak, Vivek, and Narayanan for your insights. Very important thing, when you say sourcing is the art, that continues to say that we have some business. Only thing we need to upgrade because that art would be needed. That's a very, very important point, Deepak, which you said. Yeah, discipline is very important. When you said discipline yourself to bring discipline into the system for any technology platform, I think that goes without saying. Most of the times, people at the top only don't have a discipline, which I think Vivek also pointed out. And Vivek, very important point when he said that, yeah, we bring in requirements from the functional teams and get them involved. Narayan pointing about change managers, the way change managers are. Very important point also that was very, very, very critical from bringing in important tools like Umber, Headcast, which are being used nowadays. Too much of customization may result into upgradation problems as the software get upgraded is also very, very critical point because we may tend to lose out while we are doing enough of customization. The entire upgradation process may create a new set of problems and tech becomes a backbone of an organization as it keeps going and implemented over a period of time. So quite a lot of points which we learned here, and thanks to all the audience as well for being patient listener and having so many questions. Thanks to my panelists and our team as well for getting this organized. Sincerely, thanks to all of you.
Thank you, everyone. It was great to have you guys here.
Thank
Have
you,
a great day.
Sunilji, Vivek Babu, Ranu, Narayan sir.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yes,
Thanks a
hi,
lot.
Ganesh Iyer is silent. Okay, Vicky Jain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, participants, for wonderful questions. Thank you for your time. We'll catch up on some other Zoom call soon. Thank you. Come on the Facebook. Today we have a wonderful show.
Yeah, I missed out. In fact, Deepak, I just read it a few minutes back.
Yeah.
Deepak is supporting the education for COVID hit families, and there's a show from Rotary Club Powai, right, where they're singing.
If you give me a minute, I'll just read out the Zoom ID. I'm typing it here. Will that help? No. 872.
You can put it in the chat. Or
Yeah,
I'll
I'm
do
putting
it.
in the chat. Yes. So leave it open for a minute so that they can have it. It's going to be some very celebrity performers. This is raising funds, Rotary Club of Bombay, Powai. And the password is 003878.
While Deepak is typing, Deepak himself is a very good singer. And from people who connected me to Deepak, they keep talking about him singing sometimes. I'm sure we'll be part of it, Deepak, today in the evening.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunilji. Bye-bye.
Bye.